Good morning, everyone. I am Nicole Saunders. I am the manager of community engagement at Zendesk. We have a B2B support software forum, and I am here today to talk to you about how to run a moderator program on a shoestring budget. I chose this topic today because I know that how important moderator or even super user type programs are to a community. And the reason that I chose the shoestring budget tagline has to do with the fact that, the community management or the state of community management report from the Community Roundtable came out this week. And one of their big findings was that most community programs don't have a dedicated budget. They said about 58% of programs are run without their own line item in the budget. And I suspect of the roughly 40% of programs that do have a budget, it's not always the biggest. And so many of us are tasked with the challenge of how to engage, recognize, and reward our users when we can't go spend a whole bunch of money on swag or flying people to conferences and that kind of thing. So I will be speaking specifically about a moderator program today, but I do think that there are takeaways for any kind of user recognition and reward program that you are trying to do. And then, as I said, I will be speaking to a lot of examples for a B2B software forum, but I think no matter what kind of community you're running, a lot of this will apply. So as we dive into this, I wanted to start with talking a little bit just about why to have a moderator or super user program and why these are valuable. And this is going to come in important at the end of the talk. So I'm first going to go through a little bit about moderator programs and then talk through some of the perks and benefits that we've discovered over the last 10 years that we've been able to implement to help you get some ideas and some inspiration for things that you might be able to do. And then at the end of the talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to measure and communicate the value of your program so that ultimately you can make a budget ask and be able to expand on it. So the value of these kinds of programs, first, it can be really helpful that this can augment your team. You can do more with fewer people. Another thing that we know from that State of Community Management report is that most community teams are 3 or fewer people. Many of you are probably a team of 1, or maybe running the community is just part of a bigger job that you have. I know even at Zendesk, we're a team of 3. So I've got myself and 2 community managers that I oversee. And so for us, the community moderators are really helpful in terms of everything from helping to enforce rules in the community, keeping an eye out for spam, but most importantly, they help answer other users' questions. The other thing that putting together a program like this can do is it takes those most valuable, most active members in your community, and it gives you a direct connection and relationship with them in a way that you don't have with all of your broader users. So we use this a lot of the time. Anytime that we want to recruit additional moderators or make any kind of change to our community, we make sure to run it by our existing moderator team. And they serve as this wonderful sort of focus group or community council that can help us make well-informed decisions that will really serve our users and making sure that we're taking our users' perspective into account when we do those things. This also creates a sense of ownership and leadership amongst your members. Communities are most successful when the users feel like the community is theirs and there for them and not just a channel to engage with users. And so it's really helpful to have these other members. And if one of the things that you're struggling with is user-to-user engagement, which is one of the biggest challenges that we hear about communities across the board, having moderators or super users who are highly engaged will help to set that culture for your users to really see that users help one another in this space. So this is a question that I saw come up in another session yesterday. How do you make your users feel valued for their contributions and not just like they're working for you for free? I thought that this is a really important question because one of the things that you have to keep in mind anytime that you're running a user engagement program is making sure that it's really clear that they are volunteers. Part of this is a legal issue. So, you do want to make sure that any kind of agreement that you have people sign when they join a program or, onboarding materials, you clarify that they are volunteers, they're not paid employees. While they may sometimes receive rewards and recognition, that is not to be taken as payment. And if you have a legal team in your organization, I definitely recommend working with them on the wording of these things. But more importantly is the whole issue where you don't want people to feel like they are being taken advantage of or they're being asked to do too much for you. And so this is part of why thinking really carefully about your rewards and your benefits is really important. So you want to make sure that those users get at least as much out of it as they put into it, and maybe even more. This should really be something where they feel like there's a benefit to them for participating. It's also really important to make sure that your rewards go beyond just things like swag and gifts and monetary incentives if you use things like gift cards or something. Now, don't let me get it wrong. Swag is always important. People love their swag. But it's really helpful if you can find rewards that help them develop something in terms of what they're trying to achieve. So whether this is professional development, skills that they can use in their job, something they can put on their resume, or if they're trying to establish thought leadership or greater awareness within the community or organization that your community functions within. So look for some of those things that bring a deeper value than just like a prize. And then finally, as you're creating and giving out these rewards, make sure that you're really emphasizing that this is a recognition of their work, not just an incentive. And that can be something as simple as phrasing it as, hey, you answered 10 user questions this month. We really appreciate it. Here's a t-shirt as a thank you gift, as opposed to, hey, if you go do 10 posts, we'll send you a t-shirt. Just the way that you phrase it and the way that you present it can really change how users feel about it and how they feel about their participation. So here's the question that this whole presentation is predicated on. How can I recognize or reward users if I don't have much of a budget? And again, as I called out, many community organizations have to operate with a really small budget, especially when they're first starting out some of these user recognition programs. So you do have to get a little bit creative, but it turns out that there's actually a lot that you can do. And so what you really want to do is look around your organization and see what you already have at your disposal that you might be able to use. And sometimes this is things like taking things that your employees receive and seeing if you can also distribute those to this small group of super users or moderators. So I've grouped the different kinds of recognitions and rewards into 3 buckets that sort of get increasingly broad and complex. And we'll go through each of those now. So the first one, and this is obviously the most important thing when you're highlighting any kind of recognition in your community, is the visual recognition piece. So having a badge in your community. As you can see in the lower left-hand corner, these are examples of the badges that our community moderators have in our community. It's a really simple design. It's pretty basic, but it does let users know, hey, this person's a community moderator. It helps them give validity to the responses that those users have, and it helps them be recognized as a voice of authority. Another way that you can offer visual recognition is to feature them in any kind of publication that you do. So if you have a regular welcome post that you do in your community, if you have a newsletter, anything like that that goes out, make sure to call out when a new moderator comes on board. Celebrate their successes. If they do something really cool, maybe if they earn a certification, or if you've got multiple levels, make sure to call that out. Those are really nice ways to feature it and also bring attention to the program within your community. Exclusivity and identity are another important piece. And so, you don't want it to, if you make the program too broad or you don't create that sense of exclusivity, it's not a special thing if everybody has access to it. But another really important piece of this is making sure that your moderators have a dedicated space in your community or a dedicated channel. So we actually started with a private topic in our community just for the moderators. And then we ultimately ended up launching a Slack instance for them. So this is a place where they can talk to one another to get support on issues. They can swarm around user issues if they're trying to answer a question and share ideas and learn from each other. But it also gives them a direct channel to us. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, which is all about access and input. The other piece of this identity is making sure that they have identifiers, giving them a name. And then you can see here, we've got our moderator logo, that badge there. And I love this logo. So this is one that we had designed for us. So it's a mixture of, it looks like a sheriff's badge. It's also designed around the idea of being like a gear or a cog, something that helps keep things going and works sort of internally. And then it also looks like little people holding hands. Our moderators love this badge. It goes on their exclusive swag that they really like. And we're actually going to be integrating this into the community badging. So there's some new badge features that are coming to the Zendesk Gather platform in the near future. So they're going to have both that tag that says what they are as well as the icon badge. So it's really helpful to be able to create that visual identifier that helps them form a cohesive group. So I mentioned a little bit about that direct access piece, and this is something I've seen a few people call out in the comments that they find is really helpful in their programs. And when we've seen industry surveys and when we've surveyed our own moderators, having access is one of the most valuable things. And that doesn't cost you anything, right? To get on the phone with some of your users and talk to them directly or help them connect to other people in your organization. So we've got the Slack channel, as I mentioned, and that gives them access to the community team as well as our developer support team and a couple of other folks that work in our self-service program. We also schedule a monthly call with our product managers. So each month we ask the moderators what area of the product they would like to learn about, and then they vote, and then we set them up on a Zoom call with the product manager of their choice. So they get to hear a little bit about the roadmap and what's coming up. They also get to ask questions and have a dialogue. And this is really one of those win-win benefits. And what you'll hear as I go through the rest of this is that a lot of these perks and benefits are a two-way thing. So it's helpful for the moderators and it's helpful for the organization. So with those calls, our product managers get some great feedback from users that they know are power users of the product. They're people that are super aware of other users' needs as well, since they're interacting in the community all the time. They always have great questions. And our moderators love that feeling that they are actually able to influence the product roadmap and help inform the way that the products roll out in the future. Another way that we provide access for our moderators is we actually give them expedited ticket support. So when they file a support ticket, it automatically goes to our tier 2 agents. This came about for a couple of different reasons. So first, we figure that between their interactions in the community, their interactions with one another, and their interactions with us in the Slack channel, they've probably exhausted any of the support that a tier 1 agent would be able to provide by the time they go to file a ticket. We also know that, as long as they're dealing with a support issue on their end, they're not going to be able to be active in helping other users in the community. And so the quicker we can get them back up on their feet, not only is that great for them and great for their organization, but it helps us out as well. And that piece about it being helpful for their organization is also important. Particularly in a B2B setting, a lot of these members are interacting in our community during their workday and sort of as part of their job. And so we also want to make sure that we're providing benefits where their employers are comfortable with them participating and serving in that capacity as a part of their role. And so if you can find benefits that also go beyond just the individual into the organization that they're working with, that is really helpful as well. And that brings me to the third point on this slide, which is access to programs. So we give our moderators early access to our betas. If it's going to be a limited beta with a small group, we make sure that they're one of the people that's on that list. And we are also working towards giving them more access to training and education. So if your organization has any kind of a certification, education programs, anything that helps people develop skill sets, that can be a really wonderful benefit. Because that gets at that piece of professional development or things where they're able to work towards something they're able to achieve, and it's facilitated by participating in your program. The other thing is that will also help them build knowledge and skill sets that they can theoretically bring back and share with other community members. And so again, it's one of those win-win things where they're gaining skills, their employer is excited that they're gaining skills, it's making them better at their job, and they're gaining increased ability to help other users. And so we have found that training and education piece to be really, really key in facilitating a great benefit for our moderators. And then finally, there's a group of benefits around raising the profile. And this one you see has a little asterisk. The caveat is don't raise people's profile without their permission. So while, on the first slide we talked about visibility and recognition as being really important, it's key to always check in with folks before you feature them in things and make sure they're comfortable with their face and their name being included and that it's something they want to do. Some people really love being super active online, but they don't necessarily want to be in the limelight beyond that. That being said, for the people that do like it, they will love a lot of these benefits. one of our moderators talked about how he couldn't wait for us to celebritize him. And so one of the things that we did is we found a couple of Zendesk events that some of our moderators were going to be at. And at those events, we did video interviews that where we discussed with them, their experience with Zendesk, their experience with the community, their experience being a moderator. And now our marketing team can use those videos for interstitial things at events. They can use them in marketing clips. We can use it to help promote the community. And those moderators were so excited to get on camera and talk about their enthusiasm for the program. I talked on the first slide about featuring them in publications, and that was specifically around things that you publish. But you should also look for opportunities to feature them, and whether it's marketing materials or other publications that go out more broadly to your company or to other users. There are often spotlights in various places like that. If you can talk to your moderators and see if their company wants to be referenceable, they can start to be the spokesperson there. So those are all really helpful things. The other piece that all of this raising the profile stuff does is it doesn't just feature and highlight that moderator, but it helps feature and highlight your program. And that is going to be really helpful if and when you go back and say, okay, I want to talk about the value of this program and talk about budget. It's helpful if people already know that it exists and what these individuals are doing for the company. Something that we've been experimenting with that has gone over really well this year is a super easy free one, which is writing recommendations for our moderators on LinkedIn. So again, we know that a lot of our moderators include their participation in this program on their resume. Some of them have gotten jobs based on experience that they've gained through the training and education that we've provided as part of the moderator program. So it only makes sense that writing a recommendation on LinkedIn and saying like, hey, this person's super helpful. They're always really articulate and share great answers with our users. They're really knowledgeable in our products. That's something that they really appreciate, and it'll be out there for a long time. So that's an easy one to do. And then finally, featuring moderators at events. So whether you're able to get the budget to send them there, or you just find out, hey, there's a meetup in your area, let me see if I can get you set up to speak there, giving them opportunities to be on the panel, host something, maybe be a special guest speaker on a topic that they are really well versed in. Those are all great things that you can do for them. So we this year, this was the first year that we had a little bit of budget for our program in the 10 years that we've been running it. And one of the things that we were going to do is send our top 3 moderators from last year to our annual user group conference in Miami. Unfortunately, it got canceled due to COVID-19, but they were really excited. And what we had planned to do was fly them there, put them up in a hotel, and then have them be part of a big Q&A panel and featured in a couple of the talks that we were doing around self-service and community at that event. And they were really, really excited about that. And even the moderators that weren't set to go to that event felt that it really made a statement about how important their role was to the company, and to be recognized and get that kind of treatment and know that the rest of the company sees what they do and appreciates it to that level. And so that's why raising that profile beyond just your community and out to the broader organization is so important. Because these users, they are doing a lot of work for you, and they are really helping you out. And it's important that everyone in the organization knows that. Of course, the most important thing is the intrinsic reward. And, many of our moderators say that they really love and appreciate these things, but they would probably still be helping out users even if we didn't provide any of them. And I think that really speaks to how you structure the program and how you recruit them. We've always done really organic recruitment, where we look for people who are already being active in the community, already helping other users, already clearly have knowledge, and then we bring them into the program really with the aim of just encouraging them to continue to do that and maybe do it a little bit more, and also facilitate it and make it easier for them to do it. But at the end of the day, you're going to be most successful when you have people that do what they do because they want to. So as far as figuring out where to start, like I said, look around at what's available to you in your company. Aside from actually flying people to an event, all of those benefits that I listed are things that we were able to do for free. We were able to take programs and things that already existed and use those and leverage them for our moderators. We did always have a tiny bit of budget for swag, so we'd usually send a couple of t-shirts or water bottles out each year, and we are trying to expand upon that right now. even if you don't have a budget for swag, when we first started out, we would go to the marketing events teams and say, hey, do you guys have anything left over from that last event? Could we take a little bit of it and send it off to our moderators? And honestly, sometimes they were really excited to have some place to send it out to and get it out to more users. So there's always a lot of things that you can do and a lot of personal touches that you can add without needing to have a bunch of money. That being said, as you're scaling a program, it can be really helpful to get a budget. And then you are able to do things like plan a summit for people where you bring them together or fly them to events or get some of those larger swag items to reward like long-term members and top contributors. So I'm going to talk through how we did this at Zendesk. What this looks like is going to vary a lot depending on your organization, your organization's goals, and how your program is structured. But what we did is because our community is a support community and we're really focused on answering questions, we looked at how many questions our moderators were answering for other users. And once we figured out that monthly average, then we looked at the monthly average of what one of our support agents answers for users. And once we had that equivalency, we took the average salary for a support agent, and we were able to apply a monetary value to the work that the moderators were doing. So say, for example, you figured out that your moderators were doing the equivalent of 2 full-time support agents worth of answering user questions. And just for the simplicity of math's sake, let's say that those agents each make $50,000 a year on average. So if the moderators are answering the equivalent of 2 people, that program is saving your company $100,000 a year. Now, when you can put a dollar value on it like that, it gets a lot easier to go to an executive and say, hey, these people do $100,000 worth of work for us per year. Could I have $5,000 to reward them for that work? And when you put the numbers in that kind of context, spending $5,000 to save $100 is almost a no-brainer for people. And so it's really important that you figure out what you think the dollar value of the program is and a way that they can calculate that and provide that, because that is going to be the easiest and best way for you to communicate the value to your executives and to get some funding dedicated for it. So I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. I will go ahead and look through the chat. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them there. I'm also happy to connect about this program or really about anything that the Zendesk community does. We love talking about what we do and helping everybody in the community industry get better at this. So please feel free to connect with me at Nicole and Madison on Twitter. My LinkedIn profile, yes, my last name was different. I got married. Or via my email address there at Zendesk, or of course on the Zendesk community. So, all right, I'm going to go and look through the chat now and find some questions. So Cole is asking how selective we are with picking our moderators and if they are handpicked or if there's an application process. So we are pretty picky with our moderators. We tend to look for people who are active in the community for several months on a regular basis. They also need to have answered a few other users in the activity that they've done over that period of time, so that we know that they are people that want to help, are able to help, and that they can express some knowledge about what they are doing. And then we also look at that skill set, and are their answers just like, hey, there's an app that can do that, or are they writing out, custom code for people and detailed workarounds? We also allow people to publish tips in our community, so like tutorials or code or things like that. And so if they've published a tip, that's something that we look for as well. But yeah, we are pretty selective with them. We did experiment with an application process for a while. And what we found is that a lot of people would apply, and then we would look at their activity and find that they didn't actually have any activity in the community. They just thought it would be cool to be there as a moderator. And that doesn't work well, because you want people that other users recognize and have seen around the community a bit, and also people that will stick around. When we experimented with that, our thought was, well, if people want to volunteer, let's encourage that, and then maybe this will hook them and get them to stick around. But we really had the most success with the people that were already being active and already showed us that the community was a place that they wanted to spend some time. And to that end, we've had some people in our moderator program for as long as 8 years. So we're not having to constantly go and re-recruit people, because we've just got these folks that are sticking around. Okay, let's see. Jacob asks, have you ever experienced a time where super users or moderators wanted something for the community that was at odds with business objectives or internal regulations at Zendesk? How did you handle and communicate the disconnect? Yes. Recently, one of our moderators was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like we ran a contest where the moderator that answered the most questions in a month got to pick something to go on the product roadmap? I think that would be really great. And I loved his enthusiasm and I loved his idea, but there's no way that we were going to be able to have one user pick something for the product roadmap. It's just not how product development works at Zendesk. You know, these things are planned really far in advance and parts of bigger projects and things like that. And so, you know, what I did is I actually got on a call with him and just talked to him a little bit and, you know, asked what he was getting at and why this was something that he had suggested, and sort of explained our development process, and then made sure that there were some other ways that he could go and provide that feedback. And what it turned out was that there's one feature that he really, really wanted and wasn't seeing a lot of traction on. And so I was able to get him in front of that product manager and go talk to them. Now, there's no guarantee that that will be able to make it into the roadmap immediately, but at least what we were able to do is give him a means to provide that feedback. And the other key to it was being transparent about our process. People are always going to trust you more when you can share information. And so it's really important to keep them as filled in as you can, and let them know what that process looks like. Austin asks, is there any sort of cadence you'd recommend for sending gifts or acknowledgement to the moderators, or spontaneity more appreciated? We do a mix of both. So we send them cards on their modiversary. So each year that they're in the program, they get a card with some kind of little gift in it. It's often just something like a keychain or something from our local office. Our moderators are distributed around the world. And so we find that they actually like really love things that are from where we are in Madison, Wisconsin. So we'll send them cheese things and, you know, cow themed things and stuff like that. So we do send something on the regular cadence, but then we also try to send some stuff spontaneously. For example, when Gather, our community product, actually launched last year, we sent them all Gather t-shirts. Just, hey, you're part of the community. We've got some community swag. Let's send it out to you. So I think finding a mixture of it is really, really good. Let's see. Another question here from Marissa. How do you determine the amount of time they should spend versus how much you're paying them for their time, i.e. $100 a week to spend 3 hours in the community? So we do not pay our moderators. They get some rewards in terms of other benefits, but paying them would be an employment issue. So we don't spend money on it. Now, that being said, I do know that some organizations have employees serve as moderators. And so that's going to just totally depend on the employment structure. Really what we focus on is the number of contributions as opposed to the amount of time. So really just encouraging them to answer as many questions as they can. Let's see, how do you frame the value for moderators? Is there anything they receive in return? Yep, they receive all sorts of different things as far as you know, education benefits, opportunities to talk to folks, that kind of thing, as well as the visual recognition in the community. Great. Shauna, I will answer your question real quick. So how often do moderators meet with the product team? We had started on a quarterly cadence and now go to monthly. And I'm getting the flag from Mac that it's time to wrap up. So thank you all again. Like I said, please feel free to connect with me on any of these channels or on the community chat Slack. I am active there. And I'd love to talk to you further about anything that I didn't already cover today, as well as any other aspects of our program. So enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll talk soon.